Good afternoon on the East Coast. Good morning on the West Coast. How are you guys doing today? It's another Friday. It's another Legal Tech Mastery show. And I have a question for you today. Question of the day is, have you ever experienced burnout in your job? I know I have the answer, yes. But I don't care what job it is. I'm just curious if you've ever experienced burnout, because my guest today is going to talk a little bit about that. Also, in the comments on Facebook and YouTube, I asked you what your favorite flavor of ice cream is. And I've got some answers coming in. Mine is anything chocolate, chocolate, and more chocolate. So the more chocolatier it is, the better. Chocolate fudge, brownie, chocolate fudge brownie, everything that's chocolate. It can't be more chocolate enough. In fact, I put hot fudge on the chocolate ice cream. That's what I do at Baskin Robbins. So let me know. We're at the middle of the month, or I guess we're still near the beginning of the month, getting on the middle of the month of August. So it's pretty darn hot here in Maryland. So ice cream was on my mind. So that's why I asked you guys that. But let me know about the burnout as well. Also, I want to let you know that next week is the last week of season 3. I have a pretty cool guest coming next week as well, but then I'm going to take a break between season 3 and season 4, like I usually do between seasons. But after 3 seasons of doing the show, I wanted to get your feedback for those of you that have been watching the show and participating, or even watching the replays. I put a link in the description on Facebook and on YouTube. It's just, I think it's 5 questions, but I want to get your feel or your feedback on the show so far so that I can make adjustments as necessary for season 4 and going forward. So let's see here. Okay, James is saying butter pecan on YouTube. Sarah on YouTube is mint chip, which I think is mint chocolate chip, Sarah. Dara, mint chocolate chip on Facebook. Sorry. Okay, let's see here. Also, I've never seen the name Dera before. If I pronounced my name that way, I'd totally respell it. Okay, so Unkit's in India, and his favorite flavor is butterscotch. And thank you for noticing, Dara. I am color coordinated because this is my new hat from visiting Washington State, which is the first time I've been to Washington State. When I travel, I collect t-shirts and hats. So this time I grabbed a hat. You may recognize it, Dara, because you were standing next to me when I was looking at them. Kathleen saying hello. Sarah's saying yes to my question earlier, mint chocolate chip. And Kathleen, I'm sure she's saying, oh my God, yes to something I said. Okay, B is maple nut. Oh, Kathleen, is your answer to burnout? I think it's, okay, got it. I asked 2 questions, so I got to filter them right now. Ooh, peach, Wade? Really? Peach? You're such a peachy guy, Wade. Julie is saying hi to Dara, my guest today. And she's answering the question I asked about ice cream, cookies, and cream. That's a good one, too. Adrian, vanilla? Adrian, that's so vanilla. Okay. So let me know if you've ever experienced burnout. When we work for lawyers, they have a tendency to not have good time management, most of them. And also, a lot of them don't care about quality of life. So they will give us stuff at the last minute and, just basically overwork their paralegals and lit support team members. So burnout. Also, if you just have, a busy case season, I've gone 4 or 5 months straight on a second request many times, right? Just trying to get them done. So, all right, let's see here. Kathleen was confirming that I got it right. She's experienced burnout. That's not true, Wade. You handle it better than that. Daily? I don't think so. I don't believe you, Wade. Okay, so a couple people said yes to experiencing burnout. I know I'm a yes. And let's go ahead and get the show started. Welcome to the Legal Tech Mastery Show. My name is Amy Bowser-Rollins, and I'm really excited to have you all here today because Dera's in the house. I was impressed with Dera when I saw her speak at a conference years ago, and then I got to meet her in person, and I was really excited. And then I found out she learned from me when she first started getting into e-discovery, so that's pretty funny. Let me bring Dera on for you guys now. Hey, Dera.
Hi there.
I don't know if you remember telling me that, but as you were shaking me your hand, I'm like, oh my God, I used to learn from you. So
it's true. I do remember that.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's start out with the same question I ask everybody, which is give us a brief overview of your background in the legal industry so far.
Okay, so I came to law a bit later in life in that I went to law school in my late 20s. Before that, I had a letter career. It started with graphic design and moving into technology graphic design. And then after that, went to law school after I had done a lot of work for the court system and for a number of lawyers and became interested in law. I studied in Canada, was called to the Ontario Bar, which is the largest and most populous province, which is the equivalent of a state in Canada, and started to work at a full-service firm in the litigation department. One of the very first jobs I was given was a discovery task, which is pretty common for young associates, and this happened when I was in the summer program. And the disclosure that this lawyer had received was electronic documents. And I was able to recognize this as images because of my prior career in graphic design, and was able to get this lawyer the documents in a format they work with. And that pretty much started my litigation support career. As I practiced for a number of years, I just became more and more interested in working documents natively and digitally, and what I found it gave me a big advantage in my practice, being able to search for things and organize things and prepare for witness interviews and depositions a lot better, and became a convert and started to work with the paralegals and lit support departments at the firm I was at, and started to get bigger and bigger cases, and then made the transition in year 9 of my practice to working discovery full-time.
To working what full-time? What was that last part?
E-discovery full-time. So at year 9 of my career, which was in 2009, I to become an e-discovery lawyer and work only with lit support and e-discovery support department.
Gotcha.
And I've been doing that ever since.
So you spent 3.5 years at a law firm, and you were in charge 3.5 years at one of your many law firms. But at this particular firm, you managed litigation support, which is what I do, my team. And you managed, records, and, you're on the information governance team. You were doing a variety of things. But I'm curious, since I've also managed several litigation support teams, what did you gain from that experience? What did you learn overall?
Yeah, so I have been a bit unusual in e-discovery lawyers in that I like to have a very strong relationship with the lit support team. And I've actually been managing lit support teams since 2010. Which is, I think, my differentiator is I think that it's very important for me to work with the technologists to understand the composition of the data and to have control over how it's processed and produced so that I can ensure accuracy in the work that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I've taken over that role. And there's always been a very strong technologist that I've leaned very heavily to support me in my work. But been able through managing those departments to be able to advocate for better bigger technology or refined workflows or streamlined vendor processes, which I think has helped the technologists that I've worked for just show up to work and do a much better job. So I think it's improved the quality of the results that we give to the lawyers and also the quality of experience for the lit support team.
Right. Okay, that sounds cool. So you mentioned to me that one of your passion topics was avoiding burnout in litigation support. So I'm assuming that you saw it as you were working with the lit support team. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I can. I mean, this is pervasive, I think, in the e-discovery industry, particularly with lit support, but I've also seen it with document review professionals, that there is a real risk of burnout on projects and, a degradation both of the quality of the work and of the experience for the employees and the team members. So I see burnout in two ways. There's sort of what I call typical project burnout, which is when people are working very hard. Timelines can be very abridged. The hours can be nocturnal. And so when you have tight deadlines and the inability to look after yourself, getting good night's sleep and eating properly, just in a sort of burnout that is fairly easy to recover from if you can take a vacation. But I've also seen systematic, pervasive burnout where people lose the ability to function at the high level that they need to because the burnout becomes pervasive and chronic. So I'm consistently on the lookout for burnout to make sure that it doesn't infect the population. I find it's very infectious when one member of the team starts to become burned out. Other members often can become burned out as well because they need to pick up the load from that other individual. And so it can really compromise entire teams very quickly.
Yeah. When I hired people for my lit support team, I would, just in the orientation process, I spent the first couple of days with them just going over how we do things. And I always told them, do not, whatever you do not base your hours, on what you see me doing. Because I, put in a lot of hours and I work a lot at night, and so I didn't want them to feel the pressure to live up to my, it wasn't my expectations, right? It was just what I naturally did. Yeah.
There's sort of two things about burnout that I've observed, and this is true of attorneys as well, because in firms, attorneys will often burn out and they may not even realize that they're burning out, but there's a culture among us, and I think this is also true in many law firms, of always saying how busy you are, how overloaded you are. And even when you're not overloaded, that's part of the culture. And there's even an article, and I think it's in American Lawyer or one of the online publications talking about this. And that's true. So people can burn out from overwork. But I think another factor that really contributes to burnout is when people feel either disempowered from choices about how their work gets done or underappreciated about how their work gets done. And I think that the second factor is particularly endemic with professionals that may be consistently on the receiving end of requests for delivery of things and being told how to do it. And they know that there's a different, better way of doing things that will take less time and be more effective, or can consistently explain to people their value, feeling taken for granted, or, that this, why don't you just press a button and do this? And you're sitting there with 14 gigs of Slack data and you're like, actually, it's really not that easy to deal with this, and not being given enough time and not considered about what is necessary to do the work. And I actually think even more than hard work, that second bucket of factors is more contribute to long-term, is just the feeling of being underappreciated. And I see this habitually when lawyers, thank each other for the work that's been done, include paragraphs, but include lits in that message. The team. Yeah. And so in my role as e-discovery counsel, I've often requested that if there's been a couple members of the lit support team that have really worked very hard on a particular, be included the team recognition.
That's awesome.
but it's necessary to remind people that these team members.
I'm the same way. So you're preaching to the choir here. I'm loving you even more because you're saying this. So I was going to say one thing, but I'm going to say something else first, and that is I want to give a shout out to Mark Hiller, an associate from Robbins Russell. He always made sure the partner knew that the paralegal had helped or the lit support person had helped. He didn't take full credit for accomplishing a task or a project. He always gave that credit in the email to the partner, which is shocking. We're not used to seeing it, right? And the other story I have is I was in the conference room with an associate working on a case, and we were just talking about the work, and I complimented her on how well she pulled the information together. Like, this is really good. And she just stared at me, and I was like, okay, what'd I say? And she said, I've been here 2 years, and I've never had anyone compliment me on the quality of my work.
Yeah.
I was floored. And sad, and I gave her a big hug.
Yeah, passionate, right? And I think that represents a bit of a cultural difference that may also be generational. Is I know even when I was going up through the ranks, I was very much told no news is good news. If nobody's giving you feedback, that means you're doing a good job. And I could go for months and months without and not let it erode my self-esteem.
Yeah.
We've moved different culture where people are expecting whether positive or negative, or people want that more frequent communication, and we the technology to it. When I was moving up, email was still fairly new. It really depended on you seeing somebody to really have that face-to-face conversation. But now with so different channel communication, it's not unreasonable for people to expect they'll be used, including for giving feedback. Questions are being given over email, so why not feedback? The culture hasn't adapted to those new channels of communication.
Yep, totally agree with you. Okay, so everybody's commenting that the audio is cutting in and out, and I just want to let everyone know that we knew that it was fine, and then it wasn't fine right before we went live. So it is what it is for today. So hopefully it'll hold up for the rest of the show. Let's see here. People are answering questions about the ice cream, so that's cool. Okay, here's one on topic. My friend Lana, she was one of the co-founders of Women in E-Discovery. I don't know if you've had a chance to meet her yet, but she just stood up and clapped. So true. Appreciation goes a long way. Yep.
That's true fully down the road. We'll talk about vendors, but supporting your team, supporting the vendors if you're working with vendors and just sending them a thank you. And what I hear from vendors is one of the only people that tell us how the case at the end. And that's particularly true of discovery supporters that may work in third-party remote teams is, this work and then nobody tells them what happened. And so closing the loop on that also make them feel like they've contributed to outcome that, was recognized by others. Yeah. Susan's
saying it's a great point. Culture can boost you or drag you down. Yep, it's true. Mm-hmm. So, Beth is mentioning that the audio is cutting out, and too bad there's not subtitles. Subtitles are like after the fact, so we can't do them live. But so hopefully, like I said, hopefully Dera's connection will hold up. And I apologize for the broken up audio. It's, your sentences are breaking up, but we're just going to move forward. So earlier this year, you did something really cool. You just called it a passion project, and you traveled to 15 countries on 6 continents in 40 days, and you interviewed a bunch of people, and it was related to the Global Legal Hackathon. So can you tell me why you did that? I mean, I guess you quit your job to do it, it looked like, but let me know, how did it come about? Why'd you do it? And what was it like? So I had actually left Proskauer feeling very confident that I had set the e-discovery departments and lit support departments up for success, and was going to do traveling
So I left Proskauer largely from a feeling of professional burnout and feeling that team better placed with somebody else, and intending to take 6 months off on a sabbatical. I've been writing a book about legal technology, and that's what I've been doing this summer. The opportunity to then go around the world and extend my research to other places was an opportunity I couldn't ignore. I had had some contact and communications with the organizers of the GLH, and this all came together at the last minute, taking advantage of my self-imposed sabbatical to do this. So, as most people know, I had an intense curiosity about how technology can support this and how it can support delivery of legal solutions. And I was curious as to how lawyers in other countries and legal technologists in other countries were understanding problems that lawyers were facing, jurisdictions, and what technologies they were interested in to maybe solve some of those problems. And so, in coordination with the Global Hackathon, I went to a lot of places and talked to people, asked them questions about what was going on. So let's talk about the Global Legal Hackathon. This was an event that was thought up by a company called Integra. Integra is working to become the blockchain for law. And they were interested in showcasing legal technology innovations in the world, and so launched Global Challenge, this hackathon. And what a hackathon is that it's when people come together and ideate around problems and form teams of working prototypes to solve those particular problems. These happen in many industries, and there's been a phenomenon that this type of work is now to happen in legal. My personal criticism about legal hackathons is that often technologists don't show up. And so what happens is PowerPoints with lawyers talking to each other about what the problems are without a good understanding of how technology can be used to impact the outcome. And this particular hackathon was very focused on driving people to go beyond talking and thinking about how to build solutions. And as I went to were places where people had done the work and started building solutions. And so I went to talk to them.
So I'm going to show some of these articles that you wrote as you were doing it. So this one's Melbourne, Shanghai, Singapore, Dubai. This is really cool. I loved your travel interludes too, in between.
Yeah, I started to do those because so many people were DMing me on LinkedIn and saying, because I was trying to live tweet my whole trip, they were interested in your trip, not just in the technology. I was like, why would you be interested in my trip? I'm just sitting in an airport. Like, that's all I'm doing right now. I'm sitting in an airport. But people were very interested in that. And so I started to do those interludes to give some color about what's happening in the background.
I mean, I can understand why they would want to see it. I mean, you were doing a pretty cool thing. So,
yeah.
Are you pleased with the results? Are you happy with how it turned out?
I am. So a couple of things came out of that. At the global finals of the Global Legal Hackathon, there was a short video that was played. And so people can go and hear what the participants and hosts had to say about their experience in the Global Legal Hackathon. I felt that in doing this tour and going to speak to so many people in such a period of time, some issues emerged that allowed me to make connections between things that I think a lot of other people haven't been talking about. And so that's the subject matter of my book. Is I've really identified just 4 or 5 key global trends happening in legal technology that were not available. I did understand those before I had done the trip.
Oh, cool.
On a personal note, it's very confidence building to go around the world in 40 days under power. Did all the organization, all the meeting set up, all of the cameras up, all of the recording. I did it all by myself. So many people had said, this can't be done. Well, I did it. It wasn't always elegant. It wasn't always the best quality camera work.
Yeah.
But I got it done and helped participants and hosts make connections with each other around the world. So that feels really good. One of my secondary objectives was to try and understand how to help people in communities where the legal technology community is not very deep or is very new, to get connected to others for information and resource sharing. I was hoping that we could create a global collaboration or a global hub, and that's still in process. That hasn't happened yet. So that is what I hope could be accomplished, so that these entrepreneurs and technologists can connect to people and resources to help their journey. Happened in some communities like Sarah and Melbourne, but there are other locations that on the map, Dubai, Egypt, South Africa, that really need support, need the international community to reach out and help them. So creating those networks is going to be critical for those places.
So we have a question. Please let me know your real name, Dunga TV. What common issues did you find among legal tech and lit support professionals across these countries, and what are some unique ideas that came out to address these challenges?
Yeah, so I'm going to comment on a couple things that, what I saw was a lot of people trying to tackle the same problem. So among the biggest categories of legal technology is something that I'm going to refer to as a legal marketplace. So in North America, we might know this as AVO, for example, as a way for lawyers to market themselves and get clients. And we're starting to see more and more legal marketplaces. What I observed in a country where there was a less well-developed technology community is that was one of the first things people were doing. And what this really suggests to me is that around the world, there is a real difficulty in lawyers advertising their services and finding clients. Sometimes it's cultural in that people only go to those people that they know for help. But I think there's a real dearth around the world of practical communication to consumers about how to find and buy a lawyer. This is a very good thing, and it impacts lawyers' ability to generate clients, and it impacts lawyers' ability to find cases in their communities that will move the needle on justice and social justice issues. So looking at legal marketplaces not as a technology phenomenon, an indicator of the maturity of legal technologies, the robustness of a lawyer's networks, was something that occurred to me before I traveled.
Interesting. So it turns out, oh, sorry.
Oh,
I was going to say, it turns out that Dunga TV is a myth that we were talking about earlier. A myth from case.
Oh, great. Okay. So that was one thing. So one thing observed is that everybody's trying to reinvent the wheel on these legal marketplaces. And I understand that law is very jurisdictionally based, but surely there's got to be one platform that can just plug in the legal marketplace for that particular community with some of the cultural social dynamics of that. So that is a problem that many people in many parts of the world are really dealing with, and manifests itself in a number of different ways. So the team, which developed a solution called Anika, rightly celebrated as a very good idea, is a platform that enables indigent and remote people in Australia to access legal advice and possibly legal services using lawsuits. And so the idea is to connect people that are underserved and people that really to help with each other. And so that's an amazing solution. But I think to myself, why can't we fund legal aid? Right? That is actually the solution to that, and give students meaningful internships in legal aid. So a lot of the time, these solutions are getting a lot of press, but we're not at the underlying problem of what is trying to be solved. It's being a technological problem than a business or a regulatory problem. So I also observed this. There's a remarkable bit of work that's done by a team in Lagos, Nigeria. And a pretty significant problem in Lagos is that persons who are incarcerated may be incarcerated even beyond the date that they are eligible for release, because the records are not digitized, and so nobody knows when their release date is.
Wow.
So imagine getting a 2-year sentence, serving your 2-year sentence, but being in prison an additional 3 years because no one can find your record and they don't know when you're supposed to be released. So that's one manifestation of a problem. In Los Angeles, a different group solved a related problem. That's to expunge certain convictions, including related to simple possession of marijuana. It's a big production to have that done. It's not automatic. And there are laws that permit people who have served their sentences to have those records expunged. What we're really addressing is the lack of digitization of court systems, and this is endemic around the world, right. Is that if this nation was just in a digital format, we could then bring technology to make these outcomes that we all agree are appropriate and according to the laws in those countries. So I saw a number of solutions that were really geared to deal with this deficit as well. And while solutions are to be celebrated, it's important also about the economic conditions which have led to chronic and systematic funding of courts and judicial resources to permit these records to be digitized and to help use the reason those kinds to do work. Right? So wow. The lack of doing that is felt by people who have the least power within the system. And so as cultures and communities and as lawyers, we need to think hard about whether this is the right allocation of risk.
Wow. That's pretty deep, Dara.
It is pretty. So
Julia wants sorry. I think Julia is also a fan of you. She wants an autographed copy of your book.
I know Julia. She's one of my most memorable students.
Awesome.
So it's great. I've been
mentoring her since January 2012. That's how long she's been in my life.
That's awesome. So she's been in your life a little bit longer than she's been in mine.
And Srinivas, my new team member in India, is saying hello. And Adrian, I have no idea what you're doing. Khalif Browder. Could be an ice cream. Or could be something else. Adrian, you might need to clarify what you mean by that. Adrian was on the show a few weeks ago.
Okay.
All right.
That might be a
might be what?
Yeah. Might be a way for somebody to get somebody's attention.
Okay, so the other cool thing that you did this year, it's not like you're slacking around just, whatever. In 2018, you're kicking butt. So you also became an adjunct professor, which is awesome. And you're teaching in a program in Toronto. And the name of your course is Taxonomy in Innovation? Is that what it is? Something like that?
Innovation. So a number of people, including Julia, know that one of the ways I try and give back to the community is by teaching, and I've taught in a number of different capacities, increasingly in e-discovery and lit support. This is a bit of a departure. My law alma mater, the Faculty of Law, has started a global professional LLM. And this is a remarkable suite of courses. There are a few different audiences, but it's intended for professionals, both lawyers or other students who have undergraduate accreditations, to gain advanced understanding academically of certain topics in law. So they've had a number of streams in this program. This year they have introduced something called Innovation, Law, and Technology. There it is. And so there are a number of required courses, including things like IP and venture financing and the types black letter courses you'd think about. I was asked to teach an elective, and the elective title that I was given was Economy of Innovation. And so the dean and I went around in circles for a little while. And then the way that because I was like, what's taxonomy of innovation? Like, exactly. I have a lot of reading in innovation. So that there are curricula on innovation. You can go and get your PhD in innovation, right? Yep. Through a business school, through a number of different departments. I've done a lot of reading, but I'd consider myself to be a lay expert in that reading. I've been doing it out of interest. What I decided to do in that course was make sure that everybody was conversant with some of the theories of how innovation happened. So I looked at the academic literature from Schumpeter to some other ones on open innovation, which is a model that is becoming prevalent for innovativity now. So we talked about, and then I talked about the course. Really, we looked at specific case studies where something innovative had happened, mm-hmm. and we looked at the law's adaptation to that innovation. So a lot of the innovations we looked at were technology innovations, things that had happened in the past, things that were happening now, and things that are about to happen. But I reminded everybody is that innovation in our current culture is understood to relate to technology, but it can be something quite different. So one of the first issues we had was giving women the right to vote. Was that an innovation or was that not an innovation? How are we going to define innovation? A lot of today are innovation, the activities that they do, but a different way of looking at what an innovation is an outcome, which suggests that a characteristic of an innovation is that it's got to have market impact. It's got to be used. Otherwise, it's invention, or it's a creative gesture, or it's an act of invention. But an innovation is something that becomes commercialized or used or disseminated beyond it in some way. And so we looked at these phenomena, and some of the things we looked at were document sharing sites. We looked at the internet and the phenomenon of trolling, revenge porn, and how the law has did to that.
Okay, I didn't know that we were going to take that turn.
Yeah. So, that was interesting. People do this now because of the internet, because they can be anonymous.
Yeah.
There's a lot of technology that literally allows people to stalk others.
I know.
One of the things I'll look at when I teach this again is Gamergate, to look at, is there a legal remedy for experience chronic trolling online and death threats online, and what are the challenges that our legal infrastructure of America has for that? Looked at the Internet of Things, and we looked at the complexity of facts and what's sufficient. That's to look at the types of challenges might have augmented reality and virtual reality. And then we also looked at Facebook and the attention economy and some of the legalizations behind Facebook's dissemination of information and people's ability to disseminate things. So the other thing we really looked at is the so-called fake news and deep fakes, and how artificial intelligence is about to create content that may not reflect our understanding of factual reality, and how to, as lawyers, what are we going to do with that? And raise a whole wonderful governance for people to think of.
So what was there, what I guess, how many people did you have in the class? This is your first time teaching it, right?
Yeah, and these are graduate courses, so they ended to be small seminars, very reading intensive. So there were about 15 people in the class, and they're all writing their papers right now, okay, and getting to me today. I'm really looking forward to those papers. People are learning everything from, delivering services to customers to who's going to own stuff on the first money. So it's and to people's rights to their own atoms with the technology. That people are going to do all kinds of crazy stuff in this, and it's great.
Okay, so Due to the audio issues, I'm going to cut this shorter because it's getting harder and harder to understand you. But I do really appreciate you saying yes to coming on the show. And I love the way that you think. I love that you're a caring individual. You're a good manager of people. And that you love mentoring people. So that's, it means a lot to me personally. So I hope to meet you in person. Again, all I did that day was give you a handshake, but I'd really love to, let's see what Amit's got here. So often we think of innovation in the perspective of a product that disrupts a market that produces some positive outcome. What personal innovation has helped you be successful in your career? There you go. Amit's always thinking. Go ahead.
Innovation that I had was assuming I had all the answers as a young lawyer and going to the paraprofessionals and clerks and saying, have you seen this before? Do you have any ideas or recommendations for me about how to handle it? Nobody had any idea, but bringing other experienced brains, different perspectives to the problem.
Yeah.
My life as a young lawyer, I would not have gone as discovery had I not had those wonderful clerks at the first firm that I was at. They changed my life in a very positive way. Oh. So bringing people and perspectives to bear on the problem, diverse teams, has always served me well. And until it stops working, I'm going to keep on doing it.
Wow, that's cool, because a lot of attorneys, especially, they don't want to ask for help. Like, they don't want to show that they don't know, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Wait, what? I don't understand, Bob.
I guess the question is being vulnerable on the job.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Has also really helped me.
Yep. My favorite attorneys to work with are the ones that are like, I have no idea how to do this. Can you help me? I mean, because I'm older than most of the associates, right? I've been there, done that. I've worked in legal, 3 times as long as they have, right? So letting me help. Yeah. All I wanted to do was help if they'd let me, So my favorite attorneys are the ones that let me help them, because I want them to shine in front of the partner, right? So
yeah.
Break, and then season 4 will be in the fall. You back?
I'm back. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
It's like you know what I mean? This is revenge of technology for me. I have sat through hundreds of demos, and I know that the sales engineer is sweating buckets because the technology's not working, something basic like the internet connection.
Yeah.
And now it's happening to me in some wonderful karmic payback of some kind. I was saying full capacity, but it's not. So.
Okay. Well, we're done anyway, so I can let you go.
I'm so sorry. I know. I wish that had been a better experience. All of your because you do much work to get this set up. So